Well, it's NFL draft weekend, and for Ohio State, it certainly has gotten off to a nice start with, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. going top 5 as many expected. But the second Buckeye off the board, Mike Hall, has landed in a terrific spot in Northeast Ohio, back home playing for the Cleveland Browns. And it's very likely that a couple of his college teammates will be picked on Saturday in rounds 4, 5, 6, or 7. We'll break down what we think of Mike Hall's fit in Cleveland and what we expect from the guys that are still hoping to hear their name called. Coming up next on Buckeye Breakdown.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. Is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Well, hey, everybody, and happy NFL Draft Saturday. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. I'm Brendan Gulick along with Anthony Meglin, and we're talking Buckeyes here for, I guess it's technically day 3, but it's also kind of a day 2 recap, day 3 projection sort of show. We won't be particularly long with you today, but want to go over what we've learned about Mike Hall coming to Cleveland, and certainly what we are hopeful to see with guys like Tommy Eichenberg, Cade Stover, Josh Proctor, and we'll see what happens from there. Anthony, your immediate reaction last night to finding out Mike Hall was going to basically be moving back home.
Awesome. Just a perfect fit for the player and a perfect fit for the team as well. I mean, it's a Browns team that is depth everywhere. They have a team that they could walk out tomorrow and fill the entire roster. So a lot of where they're picking in this draft is for either best player available or potential need, not next year, but in 2, 3, 4 years. And Michael Hall fits that build perfectly. The Browns have a veteran defensive line, a couple guys on 1-year contracts, where Mike Hall, being a young rookie, will have a chance to learn from some great veterans. And if he can make an impact next year, amazing. If he can't, he's going to be a guy that in 2025, 2026 can be an impact player for the Cleveland Browns. So it was an awesome fit for both sides. But talking about Mike Hall getting to go back to Cleveland, his interview after he got drafted, he started his high school career at Benedictine, finished it at Streetsboro, and just so awesome for the young man to get to come back and fulfill his dreams in the city that he grew up in.
Incredibly cool. And, you love the symmetry in some of these things. Andrew Berry, the Browns general manager, in his press conference at the end of the night last night, talked about the fact that, Mike Hall is a perfect DNA fit for them, and where there might be questions on, is he big enough to play defensive tackle in the NFL? Andrew Berry's like, well, who's the best defensive tackle to ever play in the NFL? Aaron Donald. And maybe he didn't jump off the page in terms of his height and weight right away. And he is certainly a first ballot Hall of Famer when he's done. Mike does everything that they want him to do in that position. I don't think he needs to be a run stuffing, plug the gap kind of defensive tackle. He's strong. He's fast. And when you have the edge rushers that the Browns have, and you can mix in a guy that can get to the quarterback from defensive tackle, man, it's going to be a pretty good defensive line.
And for his sake too, you and I cover the Browns as well, and we've heard Jim Schwartz and the guys on the defensive line talk about, in Schwartz's system, they don't have a lot of responsibilities on the defensive line. They're not trying to play 2 gaps. They're not trying to do a lot of crazy things. Their rules are pretty much go get the football and do whatever you can to go get the football. So when you're able to take thinking out of it at the highest level, and just let a guy go be the elite athlete that he is, really unlocks him in a lot of different ways. And it's going to be exciting to see how he grows in that, and how he fits with the Cleveland Browns and that awesome, scary defensive line.
Andrew Berry also said that if there's anybody in the building that maybe, pushed at all for Mike to be drafted, well, certainly Denzel Ward, said, hey, let's go get a Buckeye, go get the best defensive Buckeye you can get. Andrew Berry pointed to Luke Whippler, who is on Cleveland's roster and didn't obviously get a ton of run last year, but those two guys have a really good relationship. He described them as locker mates, and the expectation that Mike and Luke and DeJuan Jones and obviously Denzel Ward, I mean, there is a real Ohio State feel on that Browns team. And it's fun to think about, like, for those who are also Browns fans who might be Buckeyes fans, there's obviously been some pretty darn lean years, right? And it seems like finally maybe, as a franchise, they've worked their way out of that. And how long did you think to yourself, God, if the Browns could just draft like the best couple Buckeyes available, maybe they could turn this thing around. And now here we are, however many years later. And, I don't know that that's always the case, but there certainly are some pretty influential Ohio State players from their college years, and they've turned into pretty good pros.
Yeah, you're just like, hey, move that team from down south 71 to just move it up north to Cleveland just so we can win some football games. But how cool is it? And he even in his post-draft press conference last night referenced DeJuan Jones giving him a phone call and just saying, hey, man, it was after his first 30 visit. He's like, hey, dude, if we can get together, this would be amazing. And how they just were able to rekindle, their teammateship, their friendship. It's just going to be awesome. There's Buckeyes everywhere on that Browns roster, and Mike Hall is just the newest addition. Maybe get a couple other coming here today.
And DeJuan Jones is a perfect example of a guy that, the Browns drafted last year because he fit who they are and what they want so well, but he wasn't going to be a starting tackle, right? I mean, Cleveland had two guys that were pretty locked in stone on the outside of their line. They went into last year feeling like they had one of the top two offensive lines in football. And then every injury under the sun that could have possibly happened. And including to DeJuan, who was the first tackle off the bench. But I think it just goes to show the idea that, like, look, if you're Mike Hall, you're on the roster, man, you got a shot and you can absolutely go play. It's nice that maybe he doesn't have the highest of expectations quite yet, but I'm sure he'll have high expectations for himself. Go in, work really hard, keep getting stronger, and go be a really mean, tough defensive tackle and see where it takes you. But, as a franchise, Cleveland's in a pretty good spot. And so I just feel like it's a really good fit for both parties here.
Yeah. And same thing happened on the defensive side of the ball, right? It got kind of overshadowed but like Shelby Harris and Mo Hurst both had season-ending injuries. Like those are two guys that would potentially be guys that Mike Hall would fill in for, So it's just like, hey, be ready. And he knows he got the best guy to lean on in DeJuan Jones, who, if you redraft 2023, DeJuan Jones probably goes in the top 10. Right. Because he was a total diamond in the rough that Cleveland found. So it's awesome. It's, like you said, awesome fit for the player, awesome fit, for the team as well.
So I don't want to go too far down the prediction road here because it's the NFL draft, man, and so many things can happen. But in talking specifically about three guys, Cade Stover, Tommy Eichenberg, and Josh Proctor, I personally see Cade Stover as like an NFC North, AFC North kind of tight end. Not saying he couldn't go anywhere else, but like I could totally see him fitting in a Minnesota or Green Bay, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Detroit. Like to me, that's who Cade Stover is. Frankly, that's kind of who Tommy Eichenberg is too. Those two guys are cut from the same cloth. We'll see where they end up, but I would love to see both of those guys in cold weather, tough cities.
Yeah, right. Just not the ones, well, for our sake, not the ones the Browns are playing. But like you think about it, like those guys are, we watched Cade last year. How many times did we say it on any of our shows, how much he just really was one of our favorite players because he was tough. He was one of the best athletes on the team. And that's what you get to with some of those tight ends. Like they're freaky athletes, right? They can block. They have crazy responsibilities to block some of the most incredible athletes and defensive ends. And then two, hey, get out in a pass pattern and beat a safety, beat a linebacker, go catch a ball and go give me 10 yards. Like that job is really tough. And Cade Stover, is going to be a guy that whoever does pick him, is going to have, a guy that can contribute and is an awesome player, right? Who's just, like I said, tough, seems to love football, right? Just he's a farm boy style guy where he's like, hey, I just want to play football. So I agree with you, right? Seeing him in, a Green Bay feels right. Seeing him in a Minnesota, seeing him in a Pittsburgh, truthfully, in my head would make a lot of sense. I wouldn't want to see it. They have a couple tight ends, so hopefully they don't go that route. But seeing him in one of those kind of towns where it'd be like, hey, that would be a really good fit where the town will just eat him up and he'll eat up the environment as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then as far as Josh Proctor goes, I'll be interested to see if he is drafted. I think he's very draftable. Something about New Orleans kind of feels right for me with him. They've got another defensive back in the room from Ohio State and Marshawn Lattimore, play with Tyrann Mathieu. Like there's something about the situation in New Orleans that I think Josh might fit in, but that's not based on any evidence or or inside sources. That's just simply kind of my gut feeling there.
Yeah, it feels like when you talk about the New Orleans Saints, they were what Browns fans wanted Cleveland to be, right? Where it's like, hey, they would just take Ohio State Buckeyes and like just take them, like Mike Thomas and all those guys. It's like, hey, this is that could be an awesome fit. But one of like the big things that you see in day 3 of the draft is like a lot of these guys, are hopefully going to go to a place that they fit well with, right? Not a lot of them are going to be called upon to be a franchise changing player, but they all have the talent to be. You see a guy like Ronnie Hickman last year he is an undrafted free agent, and when called upon makes incredible impact because, right, he was in the right fit, he was in the right scheme, and he had time to develop. A lot of these guys will get that time. You see a guy like Puka Nacua, who's a 5th-round draft pick, became one of the best players, truthfully, one of the best receivers in all of the NFL. So it's like we can speculate, we can guess, and it's fun to do that. But the hope for at least these Buckeyes that are going to go today is like hopefully they just get to a place that gives them the right fit and the right scheme, gives them a little bit of time to develop so that they can just take off right when their time is called.
I'm glad you brought up Ronnie Hickman's name too. First of all, we mentioned all the other guys in Cleveland that are Buckeyes, but Hickman's a great example because he played so hard and in a system that demanded so much of him when he was in college that he had to kind of be a little more patient when he got his NFL opportunity because it didn't come right away. But with all the injuries that Cleveland had in the secondary, he sort of got thrust in, and the coaching staff loved what he did. And I think, all of a sudden, Ronnie Hickman's NFL value shoots way up because when you're an undrafted free agent, nobody really is expecting much of you. You kind of have to go out and prove it again. But another guy that, product of what Ohio State football is, take it to the NFL, go be a pro, go work really hard and see what happens. And pretty awesome to see that for him.
I'll put my stamp, my one prediction. I'm going to say Proctor's going to LA. I'm going to throw that out there.
He's going to say, we're talking Saints, but like I can totally see him ended up in the Chargers or the Rams.
Yep.
Wonder how it would feel for a Buckeye to be drafted by Jim Harbaugh.
We have to find out. There's going to be a lot of those overlaps. We got a couple that happened yesterday, but all in all, day 3 is not a day to look past. These guys, there's going to be a couple guys today that come December, January, February that are making impacts for teams that are in the hunt. So hopefully it's a couple of our Buckeyes here.
Can't wait to see how it all shakes out. We'll certainly have everything covered for you on Buckeyes Now. Would certainly appreciate it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can continue to do video coverage for you just like this. And also for all the latest news and info on the team, si.com/college/Ohio State. And we'll look forward to talking to you again real soon. For Anthony Meglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. Good luck to the Buckeyes today that are hoping to be drafted. And I know there's a lot of people in Cleveland awfully excited that Mike Hall's staying home.